Hello, and welcome back to another episode of School of Self-Worth. I sat down this week with Dina Lobo, a global transformational coach and CEO of Transformational Spark Coaching, helping individuals and businesses revolutionize workplace culture with mental and emotional wellness. So, in this conversation, Dina shares about how she overcame childhood trauma and an isolating pregnancy in the middle of the pandemic to see her own internal divinity and really truly loving her life. Her biggest awakening was realizing her job was not to fix other people or herself. And then when she saw that, she started to see major shifts in her own life. If you're a high achieving woman of color wanting to release the inner critic and step into your own power, this conversation is for you. Right. So, Dina, I'm so excited you're here. Dina is a global transformational coach, and I'm so excited to welcome you to School of Self Worth.
Thanks, Nicole. Thanks for having me.
Dina and I got connected through a mastermind group where we met, where there's lots of other coaches in there. And it's been really, really fun, Dina, to watch your journey and your growth over time as a coach and in your business. And so I'm so excited to be here with you. And then one of the pieces, we had talked about sharing. Well, before we get into that, I actually would love to hear your journey, and particularly around self-worth, and that what brought you to the place where you are out there in the world speaking, appearing on television, lots of different TV shows that you've been on. So, what is it? Could you even give us like that beginning stage, like the beginning piece of where you started to realize it was time for you to go on this journey of transformation and growth yourself?
Yes, of course. To talk a little bit about my background, I've lived in multiple countries and different cultures, and being raised in India, it has been a very punitive, competitive environment. So I think being an hyperachiever is like in my blood, something that I constantly work around, and it's a big saboteur for sure. Because anything and everything that I did was not good enough, right? So it is the competitiveness, um, and I always had the leadership skills. I think from a very young age, what was told to me was, you can't speak too much, or there was a lot of conditioning. Even though I've had the greatest childhood, thing that kept missing was emotional attachment. Even though I've been raised with great education, all of the fantastic needs, but that emotional attachment as to not educating myself, like what do I do when I hit those highs and lows. So of course, not having enough knowledge there forced me into wrong relationships, partnerships, friendships, where I try to fit in, where I try to belong. And then it manifested in my health, where I later on in my life got some inflammation. It was pretty bad. I had to go through multiple surgeries. And I think 4 years ago, when I was like having good pay and financial services manager at the bank and doing all of the helping people with finances mindset, I just knew I was meant to do something so big, because I was dreading to go to work. 9 to 5 was not a cup of my tea. And I just knew that I myself had so much enough share of my own trauma, from health challenges to my past childhood trauma to, my adult life, like just entering, the first workforce, to that experiencing the hierarchy, experiencing the toxic culture, experiencing the cutthroat work culture, and not feeling really connected. I think I just lost in this, all of this purpose of finding who I am. I just lost myself. So
Mm.
3 years ago, I was talking to my husband, and we were trying to plan a family, and it was very scary for me because I had my own health challenges. Um, but one thing that I knew, I didn't know all these words that I'm now talking about, like manifestation, law of attraction, or a lot of neuroscience, neural pathways. All of those things were very, I didn't know the words, but I was a strong manifester in terms of coming to Canada, marrying the love of my life, to moving to this beautiful house, becoming a mom. So the thing that I was so confident was the persistence in not giving up. Even my doctor, like every month, Nicole, I had ER visits when I was pregnant. And I gave birth during the peak of the pandemic. And I had to prepare myself to go give birth all by myself on top of those surgeries, on top of this chronic inflammation. Like, it was so scary, but I didn't take note of word, my doctor's word. I was so focused, with that intention and attention. I was able to become a mom. Just with the single try, I was able to conceive. And not just that, the power of positivity, the power of words, and the power of who I was, I figured out when I was able to really be myself, to heal, to, focus internally and see who I truly am. Like, what is my purpose in this world? Right.
Mm.
So when I cut down all of the noise, I got connected to my beliefs, and I saw my internal divinity was so powerful that not just I gave birth, not just I was able to become a mom, I reversed my inflammation. Like, no surgeries, nothing. And I'm
Wow.
just loving the life that I'm leading now. Yeah, so this is a little bit about myself.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. What a powerful story for
Thanks,
you.
Nicole.
Like, yeah. Well, I can't imagine first giving birth by yourself during lockdown or during this stretch where you couldn't have anybody else with you in the hospital. So that must have been a really huge experience.
At the
But I'm
very
curious.
last minute, my husband was allowed, so I
Oh,
think
good. Amazing. Okay, good.
yeah,
Yes.
it was quite traumatizing for sure.
Yes.
But that same year, I had to go back to multiple surgeries all by myself after
Mm,
that. So yes,
mhm.
that definitely added a lot of like anxiety and depression and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds, yeah, that must have been incredibly difficult. So I'm so glad you're on the other side of that. But I'm curious for you, like, I love hearing what you're saying. You're like, there was a part of you that was really great at actually getting the things that you want. And this is what I see very often with a lot of high achieving women is that they're actually quite powerful in getting things that they want, but they really struggle to apply it in every area of their life, right? Like they're kind of like you, where you're like, oh, well, I got the husband in the house and the kid, but in other areas of my life, I didn't really know how to start to do that. And where did you start to realize or see, like, have you always had that skill? Like, were you as a young child able to like pull things in and really create a life that you like create things in your life?
Um, I would say, I think as an adult, like, I just figured out if my cousins were able to become the engineers and the doctors and the lawyers and all of the people, and I had to give up my sports just because people told me I can't have a career with that.
Mm.
I just knew I had leadership skills because I was the shortest in my team and I was a sports captain. I represented my state and I was a Rotary Club president. I loved service. I loved to do
Mm.
something from a very young age. But then I had to challenge myself, and that was pretty egoistic. Like, it was not like, if they can, I can as well. So I became an engineer. But I love that I became an engineer because now when I, help my clients, it's so important for me to dig deep in and to really engineer the process with them. And so what I'm saying is, I think as an adult, I figured out that, you know, um, I can get anything I want if I'm really persistent about it. But I think I lost myself in the process of all of this. Like, even my jobs, like, I got hired through HP, but I didn't really work there. I had to take the leap of faith, fly to Dubai, and I reestablished myself, didn't do anything in software. Um, it was something into sales and marketing and getting more business in. But right now, when I look back, all the dots are connected because as a business owner, I need all of those skills. So God put me through all of these things and shaped me through to really get me to this point. And I own all of these negative
Mm.
experiences because they were all my learning lessons. So I think the real awakening was I saw that I always thought that the problem was to fix others and to fix myself. So the minute I realized that it is not about fixing anybody else, it's the way I show up, it's the way I accept myself just the way I am, things started shifting in my life.
Beautifully said. So it sounds like then when you started to stop trying to get into this, I've got to be a certain way, and
Yes.
then really starting to see yourself for who you are, that's when your life started to expand. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because I think early on I would just roll the carpet in, like, on for anybody and say that I'm the one who's, causing the problems,
Mm.
and or I would hesitate to show up. I would start somewhere greatly, and it wouldn't go well in terms of like even friendships. So fitting in was a way for me to soothe myself, when I felt the intense emotions of highs and lows and disconnection from who I truly was. So Yeah, just to answer to your question, I think it was very, very important for me to realize that as an adult, I carried that as well. And when it started bleeding onto my loved ones, I just realized, no, 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 this is not the way it's going to work. I cannot
Mm,
make this happen. It is just accepting me for who I am. I cannot reverse, that my parents didn't have that kind of education or access. When I say education, access to mental health, it's still so backwards in Asian culture. So I think just making myself a priority with personal development and really focusing on tuning and tapping into my desires and just feeling safe in my own skin, and just the way I'm talking to, just feeling like telling people who I truly am and creating my space and boundary was very important to me. And that is when I started feeling like the people around me started shifting. So I think for the longest time, because I was such a people pleaser and just did everything for everything else in terms of like, the job, the false relationships, the partnerships, and all of the things, I realized that it wasn't me. It wasn't my core value. Just I was just painting the
mm,
picture of this conditioning of just trying to fit in and proving my identity, just trying to be there. But for the most part, I was running away from who I was. So these awakenings that came to my life was through my own health issues, challenges, just realizing that I have this relationship, but what next? So I had to realize that I cannot bleed onto my loved ones.
mm. Well, what you're saying about conditioning is powerful around like how you were conditioned to do a lot of this stuff. And I think that a lot of people, the listeners too, we all experience that where we're like conditioned to be, and myself included, like we're conditioned to go after goals, to be ambitious, to be high achievers, to work really hard
Yeah.
on things that we're actually not really called to, but we just feel like we need to. Like we just need to
Yes.
hit those goals for whatever reason. What helped you shed that conditioning? Because you said you also come from a culture that puts a ton of value and priority on that, and so do I as well, around like education and the kind of job you have. So what helped you start to separate yourself from the conditioning?
I think the deep awakening was when I lost my best friend in Dubai at the age of
Mm,
40. Like it came like a lightning so quickly. We were at my sister's bachelorette party and we had a greatest time. And then, following that event, the next couple of days, I realized that she got seizure attacks and she was diagnosed with third stage of brain tumor and she was gone so quickly. And
wow.
those words really resonate with me. That she told me that all you have is today. I realized that I was creating this false, illusion of like I have a lifetime to focus on me or to do things that I love,
Mm,
or and start. That is when I realized I need to stop doing things for others all the time and start doing things for myself, put myself first, and live my life colorfully and meaningfully. And that means really being expressive of who I am and creating a safe space around me. That was just an awakening call that all we have is today. Nothing is guaranteed, but what I can pass along is the legacy, is the true habits of how, for my daughter, how is my mama showing up when there are challenges, right?
mm,
So that is something that I learned from my friend that, she told me, Dina, I didn't have that time to create a family or to marry the love of my life or, to become a mom, but you have the time right now, and make it worth it. So this is when there was that awakening of my self-esteem, my worthiness of who I truly am, what do I deserve in life. That just gave me a whole new perspective of not to take things for granted or pity myself or do that self-blame thing, um, but really accept me, face my fears head on, just seek help, professional help. Like this was a big one, right? Because again,
mm,
coming from Asian culture, like we've been taught to like keeping our secrets for ourselves. Like vulnerability was a big thing for me. Like, you have to show yourself. It's so tough. I got that from my sportsmanship, like being that, as well as other things that I've done in my high school, my university, my college as a young adult. All of the things that shaped me was fear of vulnerability. That was really hard. As women, especially, it is for high achieving women. It is really hard for us to lower that emotional barrier, and so I had to work through all of that, and now it's so amazing that we can connect with a beautiful human story, and we each one of us have that. And for me, when I was able to really accept my story and tell people who I am, and head on, like, look at my fears and acknowledge it, validate it, separate myself through all of that, I started trusting in my abilities, and that was magical.
Really beautiful. Well, I'm curious though. So when your friend passed, then for you, that was like that moment where you're like, okay, I've been wasting my time worrying about what other people think or living my life according to some plan. It sounds like that isn't actually the right one for you. And then you asked for help. And so I'm curious about what's the kind of help you started to receive at that time or started to ask for.
Yes, so that was when I was in Dubai. I had a good job, but I didn't have the greatest work-life balance. Like, I was really workaholic, and and then weekends was all about friends and family time a little bit. But I didn't really do anything for myself, like in terms of like really spending some time just in the nature, doing something mindful.
Mm,
I didn't know anything about energetics, just honoring me for who I am. I did not have any kind of self routine, none of that. No meditations whatsoever, no exercising. Like, it was
mm,
real bad. So I think that's when I started seeing my challenges in my health. And I
mhm,
saw that the coping mechanisms were not healthy. And one of the ways that I was trying to soothe myself is seeking outer validation. And that is through friends and everybody else, or binge watching. And, so this wasn't healthy. And I think that was my wake up call. So, yes, um, one of those incidents was losing my friends, but also there were several other incidents that I realized that it is time for me to do something to honor myself and to really live a purposeful life that is meant for me. Yeah.
mhm. Yeah, I would say health breakdowns is a really common theme. I feel like amongst many women, where that's like, we don't want to have those rock bottom moments, and I don't recommend them. Like all of us have had them, myself included.
Yeah.
And oftentimes it is that moment where your health is just like, it's staring you in the face. You're like, I cannot actually go on like this, and I have to make some changes. So
Right.
it sounds like that was the experience for you. And then I'm curious for you, then what really started to help you get out of that? Like, what were the changes you started to put in place?
Right. I think when I shifted the focus and really started, understanding myself, like gave myself the grace, that was the biggest one, because I was very critical. Like, everything had to look
Mm,
so good and perfect
yeah,
around people. And,
yeah.
I just made every little effort to make it look so beautiful around me. Right. So I think really the challenging perspective was, how can I just love myself just the way I am? Right.
Yeah.
And that for me was not just the external beauty, but really the internal flaws, like really accepting me with all of those negative experiences that I've been through that caused me pain, that, caused me to believe certain voices that is not mine. But I solidified it over years and years and years. And now it was time for me to really accept that part of me and really
Hmm.
show some love. And that was very challenging. So the minute I did that, I think people started showing up in my life very differently. Like, God, universe put opportunities in me. Like, I would open Facebook, and I would have someone like, oh, I just want to hire this person as my mentor because she's talking my language. Like, this is
Mm,
when I think I started having that heart and brain coherence, where I was sending those signals out and people were showing up in my life. So this was 4 5 years ago. My journey really began in investing with mentors and coaches, although my personal development has begun 6 7 years ago. But really, I realized the power of proximity. I realized how important it is to have a coach in your pocket, on your place, where it is unconditional, where it is safe, where it is like you can cry, you can have tools, you can, seek support. So that was the changing moment in my life. Like, when I really started showing grace in my life, and I saw that safe space that I was creating around me, people started showing in my life, and that was beautiful.
thank you for sharing that. I
Yeah.
feel like for so many women, like, women of color for sure. And then I also feel like women in general are really conditioned to not ask for help, particularly in American society, that they really are in this idea of like, I have to go it alone. I have to figure it out. And I feel like the
Mhm.
internet almost makes it worse because you're like, I can find anything I need on YouTube, like I can find anything I need on the internet. And then we suffer because we don't actually have the kind of deeper support that you're talking about, where you can really be yourself, you can really share deeply
Mhm.
with somebody, and then you can also get the support. Because I always think of coaching this way, it's like it's how do you get there faster and easier. It's
Yes.
not that we can't do it, because you and I have both had many experiences where it's been hard, it's been challenging, and I also would never give up any of my difficult experiences
Mhm.
because I learned so much from them. And I also have learned now, like I always kind of laugh whenever something comes up that's challenging in my life. I'm like, well, who can I hire to help me out? Because that's I'll just like make my life way easier. I mean,
Yeah.
truly, like when I was single a couple of years ago, I was like, I'm gonna hire a dating coach. Like that's what they're
Yeah.
there for. They're there to make
Yeah.
this easier. And they absolutely did. Like they told the coach I had totally helped me with online dating. And it's just like a side example, but I feel like oftentimes we get really caught up in this idea that we have to go it alone versus realizing there is so much support out there
Right.
for all of us.
Right. I think that's also stemming from that conditioning of like when you have so much in your bank account, or when you had that kind of personality, then you can get that partner. Or when you have that kind of money, then you have that leverage to hire
Mm,
someone. You don't
mhm,
need this. So, like, I have not had this access to personal development whatsoever in any sort of my education, even during my engineering. So, yes, mental health was such a challenging thing because I did not have that kind of emotional intelligence, right? Like we didn't
mm,
know where do we go and talk about all our struggles and challenges. Yes, it was with friends, but you didn't have tools. All you did was to cry and then forget about it, and then it just
totally.
manifested in, one or the other way. So yes, having professional support and having coaches, is extremely helpful. Yes.
Well, I love what you're saying too about girlfriends. Like, I love my girlfriends, and any of your girlfriends listening, I
Yeah.
love you guys. And you're not a coach or professional support. It really is true. It's like I will always, I think of my friends, it's like we sit down and we catch up and I tell them about my life. But if there's something really deep that's occurring for me, that's when I go to get help, because it's just there's certain things that we really need support on that a
Yes.
friend is not really, they're not qualified, frankly. And I actually feel like it's unfair to ask friends to
Hmm.
do the support work that really we need somebody who's a professional, who has a lot of experience, who can actually help with that. So that's such a good point, Dina.
Yes, I think I resonate with that. Totally
Yeah.
agree. Yeah.
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 And so, what would you say then would be for somebody who's at the beginning of this journey, someone where you were several years ago and just starting to learn the self love practice? Because I feel like we talk about self love a lot, and I find it to be a much more complex, layered
Hmm.
thing to develop. It takes time, it takes a lot of support. But what would you say for somebody who's starting to enter that journey? Like, where would you even help them to start to begin?
I think the first step, really, what I do with my clients as well, just facing the mirror and
Mm,
really showing grace to yourself, because it is so hard when we have our challenges and trauma. We do not accept ourselves just the way we are. And it is just that way. So, as humans, we're so wired to first see the negative things, right? When is
mm,
the shoe going to drop next? So, what is that person going to say? What is my boss going to complain about tomorrow? What is my partner going to complain about the food that I made, or the money that I bring in today? So constantly we are so tapped and tuned into the fears that we just forget ourselves in the process of the personality, the joy that we bring in. So I think for myself, what I really teach and focus on, what I practice as well, is the reflection that I see is a true human, and that can be my friend. And that friend has story. So every day I look into her eyes, there is a story. So, what story do I want to listen in today? I just, with no judgment whatsoever, with unconditional love, if I can just accept her and just with open arms, just show a little bit of love and say that I'm here. What do you want support with today? Right? What can I
mm.
do for you to feel better today? I think those powerful questions, when I started asking, there were so many stories, Nicole, that I had to like, wow, it was layers and layers and layers of peeling and, putting myself out there through all of these wins and telling her how proud I am of her and parenting
Mm.
her. And, so that was my first step, really looking into her eyes and seeing a friend in her and accepting her stories and seeing, the positive side of that, learning and not being shameful, because shame is an intense emotion that women don't know what to do with. And
Mm.
therefore, that hinders your confidence. Like, I have a lot of women come and tell me now, Dina, I don't have confidence. I don't think I'm deserving of this, or the work that I'm doing, I don't think I have skill set with this, or I don't think I deserve this partner. I don't think I deserve another $500 or whatever in my bank account. And so all that stems from, like, it could be a simple experience that we've had as a child, or from our past relationship, but we don't know where's it stemming from. But there are so many stories that has been layered after layered. And so it's so important, as we face her head on, what is that I can just listen with no judgment, that she wants to just vent, like, just speak up. And so when I'm
Mhm.
giving her a chance to do that, it's getting out of my system. I'm starting to feel so lighter and happier now that I'm creating space for something exciting in my life. So that little win will then, when I send that signal out, people show up, opportunities click in, there's that
Mhm.
partner that, wants to talk to you now, and, things that show up, and that little win gives me a little boost, and I go again. And what's that little heavy story now I can, so I'm not asking to think about a very traumatizing story to start to begin with, but little thing, like as a child, like what can you connect as soon as you see her in the mirror? I think that was the first thing that I did. And I absolutely, even to this day, when I hit those lows, that exercise just gets me back into balance.
Thank you for sharing that. I love the idea. I always think of it as like my best friend, and I am my own best friend. And so, what you're speaking to is very similar. It's like you actually just go talk to your best friend, and she's you. And so, you look at her and you ask her what if she was giving you advice, what she would
Yes.
do. Right.
Yes.
And then that separation is really powerful. So, that is such a beautiful tip for everybody is to
Thank
just
you.
start looking in the mirror at yourself and asking for some thoughts and suggestions
Yes.
from your best friend, you. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes. Okay. So lovely. Well, Dina, that is such a powerful tip for everybody who is here. And I would love to do a few rapid fire questions with you. Are you
Oh,
up for
that sounds
that?
exciting, Nicole.
Okay. They're really fun. They're very simple.
Okay.
So, what was the last thing that you watched on television?
The last thing that I watched on television,
Hmm.
I think it was, well, I'm trying to think now. Mm-mm-mm. I don't watch television, to be very honest.
It's okay.
I'm always on my phone on, YouTube and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think it would have been a podcast, and that was Jen Gottlieb's podcast. That would be the last thing that I just recently that I can remember.
That
But
you watched?
in terms of movie, yeah, it is just with my daughter that I watched the Jungle Book.
Oh, the Jungle
So,
Book. How
yes,
sweet.
yes, yes. That's the last thing that I remember.
A
Yes.
lot of people, it is their last thing they watched with their child. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. Okay, beautiful. And then what is on your nightstand?
My nightstand, I have a lamp. I have two books that I'm currently reading on, one boundaries, one on
Mm.
showing myself grace around parenting. Those two books are on my nightstand. And then I have some things to really calm myself down in terms of like unwinding spray, and
Mm.
then just a little bit of essential oils. Like, I really love essential oils, and it just calms me down. And then I have a little book light, that little stand that goes on the book, that's, it's just helping me unwind for that day and just preparing
Yeah.
myself for the bed. Yeah, I think that's about it. Yes.
I love it. I love it. We're getting the insight into your evening ritual, which I love because those are really powerful.
Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
beautiful. And then when was the last time you tried something new and what was it?
mm, Tried something new, and what was it? So I think just 2 days ago, I went for shopping and I tried to buy this flare pants, and I love them. I always wanted to buy some long flare pants, which were dressy. I have the other ones, but I love them. So I think I got those pairs, and I want to rock in those pants. So it's something new out of my comfort zone. But I think, but I'm thinking I'm happy to do that.
I love that. Like it's a new fashion choice. That's super fun. I love it.
Yes.
Okay. All right, last question is what are your top three most used emojis on your phone?
I think I use heart a lot.
A lot of hearts. Love
Yes,
that.
and that's one of them. I use the celebration thing a lot, so that's the sparkle thing a lot as well because it's also
Mm.
talking about my brand transformational spark. So I think these three are the things that I use quite a bit. But heart being quite a bit, heart
Hearts
emoji.
like the main. Yes. Do you move amongst different color hearts or just one color?
I think red and pink is something that I use the most.
The most. Yes. Okay. Amazing. Well, Dina, it's been such a joy to talk with you about your journey and your experience. And then where can people best reach you and find out more about you or just be in touch with you?
Yes, two main platforms that I am more, where I post constantly, and you can see a lot of my content and engage with me is Instagram and LinkedIn. And my handle is Dina Lobo Lewis, as well as there'll be show notes on that. And I would love for every viewer to connect with me. You can send me a DM. We can connect on a quick 30-minute call, and that's just meant to empower you and to motivate you with just one roadblock. And I would love to honor that. As well as if you follow me, you see that I will be hosting alternate, monthly challenges, transformational challenges. And these are purely to unlock confidence, to tackle your fears. So it's a real time case studies and to help you, just to inspire with those 2 day live events. And you'll see more updates on my page. So please go follow me, and I can't wait to support you.
Amazing. Well, everyone get on that offer, that generous offer for a 30-minute call with Dina. Find, DM her on Instagram and we'll have all of the connects with her in our show notes. And I'm just really grateful to know you, Dina. We connected like last year, I think, or 2 years ago. And it's been just really fun to watch you expand and grow. And it's really powerful to hear your story about your own worth and value and really seeing who you are. And so thank you so much for sharing with the School of Self-Worth audience.
Thank you so much for having me, Nicole. It was just great to chat with you today.
Thank you.